Late, Dave. Late, late, late. I don't know.
Yeah.
What will drive Mike away? Morning,
Uh,
Mike. Welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning. And okay, so welcome everybody. Okay, so
welcome.
we're here. It's January 14th, 2026. I'm going to keep saying 2026 until I'm used to saying it.
It's
Um,
also January 14th, 2026 over here. Well, I got to get rid of
yep,
that light in the back.
yep, yep. And that it's important to say at this point because you've got to get used to the fact that we're in the new year, and very often what happens is people forget around about the 20th of around about the 20th of uh, January. You kind of go from writing correctly, putting all your things on the thing correctly, and all of a sudden now on the 20th of January you go 20th of January 2025 on
Yeah.
your check, right? Or on the report that you're writing or whatever it is that you're doing, when it's actually less important for us to write checks because when was the last time you wrote a check, Dave?
Oh, I write them.
You do?
Every once in a while, I write one, but I also have to write. Sometimes I have to write one for Qantas
Yeah.
because
Well,
I'm assigning authority
Kiwanis
on
is
Qantas.
different. Kiwanis is different. You're always going to write checks for an organization like Kiwanis. I say the only time I write a check is I do it weekly at work, about 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah. Oh,
You know,
yeah. Okay. For payouts or whatever.
yeah, for payouts for yeah, exactly. Well, in fact, actually, one of the things that Law Society makes it really awkward for electronic transfers. So if I'm moving money from the trust account, which moving money from the trust account to the general account, um, the electronic transfers have to be documented 3 times as much as um, as check transfers. So Angela prefers to do it all by check.
Okay. Well, if it works, it works.
Yeah, yeah. And every time we go to the bank, when there's a new person there, they say, you could do this by e-transfer. And she says, I know, but you ought to see the problems the LSO gives us for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Personally, I've seen the procedures that the LSO want to do. They want you to record. They want you to record way more than you'd put on a check, right? But if I did it electronically, all I'd do would be do a spreadsheet that had the basic information on. Anyway, that's me. That's me. Anyway, moving on. So we're in 2026. Don't forget it. Right. Moving on. Trump's
so I
basically
don't.
saying what?
Oh, we're sort of getting in and out. Like we're getting a bit choppy. Your picture goes away and comes
Oh,
back.
does it?
So
I'm not having any
yeah, mine
difficulties.
too. It wouldn't be so bad if it was just yours, but it was also mine.
Yeah. I've not had any difficulties with you here at this end. Okay, moving on.
Oh, okay.
Trump wants Tehran to negotiate, and he's basically taken a stance that there's been demonstrations across the weekend, and he said he warned Iran's leaders that the US would attack if security forces opened fire on protesters. I'm thinking to myself, a bit of a hypocrite here, isn't he?
Well, yeah, there's ICE people just shot someone in the face for
Yeah,
protesting.
yeah, exactly.
They've beaten up people for protesting.
I think
Like,
she was in a bit.
I saw them pushing around a woman one time, man.
Yeah,
A couple of dudes pushing a woman, knocking her down, throwing her around. 2 guys on a woman. Jesus,
yeah,
looks so much like yellow dogs to me. Leave the women alone, man. What's the matter?
yeah.
Like, I mean, block them or push them maybe if they're getting in the way, but slam them on the ground and then drag them and hammer them. 2 guys hammer them on like a woman.
Well, yeah.
A woman.
Okay,
What is
back, Going
yellow
back to
dogs.
Tehran, going back to
Anyway,
Tehran, yeah, US-based human rights group HRANA said it had verified deaths of 490 protesters and 48 security personnel, with more than 10,000 people arrested.
it's more like 2,000 dead, according to anyone who can get any information out of there through satellite. The death toll is probably more like 2,000 right now, and maybe even much worse than that. And
yeah, groups getting information out. You know the reliability of them. Any information in that kind of situation is prone to difficulty, isn't it?
yes, it is prone to difficulty, but it is probably much more than it is officially said. It's not even officially said that there's 500. You know, so there are dozens and dozens of people being arrested and put in jail. There's pretend counter protests. That's kind of an interesting thing. I saw that when I was in Libya, the pretend protest where the government pretty well tells all the students and all the workers that they have to protest, and they pay for people to go up and down the street and yell bad things about the U.S. and about Britain. I remember I was there one time when it was damn Britain Day kind of thing, and they were walking up and down the street, and there's damn U.S. Day and all that. But the main thing here is, will this topple the regime? This has happened more and more over the last, I don't know, since 1979 when the Ayatollah took over.
When the Ayatollah took over, there's been a lot of unrest in Iran, and in fact, actually, I've had about 2 or 3 Iranian friends when in Britain, one in Canada, actually, since this all began. And a lot of people are very concerned about what's happening with their family back in Iran.
Oh, sure. And like I said, this is not the first time. I remember Iranians had been fleeing the Shah. I remember when I was a young guy and I was at a party at some university, and there was a bunch of Iranians there, and I happened to be dancing with an Iranian girl, and lo and behold, like, there's all these Iranians keeping a close eye on me because, it's kind of like out of the culture, anyway, her and I were dancing and got a lot of attention. But then I talked to the guys, the Iranians that were kind of like the chaperones of every girl that was there.
Yeah, of course.
And they were there because they were running away from the Shah.
Yeah,
he was the goon that they were running away from, and now everybody's trying to get out of there, running away from the Ayatollah. I gotta really feel very sympathetic for people like in Venezuela and Iran who got stuck with these governments that they can't dislodge. The Ayatollah was supposed to come in and run a theocracy, and everything's going to be fair and wonderful, guided by religious principles. But what they found out, it was just massive layers of corruption. The Ayatollahs sit on their high horse basically and lay out, religious law and all that, and that's all fine and good if it worked, but it doesn't work.
But most of my Iranian friends have said that that life in Iran under the Ayatollahs is actually way worse than it was under the Shah, because under the Shah they may not have been getting rich, but they were getting they at least had rights.
Yeah, but the Shah had a secret police, and he was.
I know.
And he only lasted 25 years. So the whole thing is, they knew that the CIA and MI6 put the Shah into place.
Yeah.
For the same kind of reasons. He nationalized the oil. He wanted more of a stake of the oil for his own people. The guy who was elected, the Iranian leader that was elected, the CIA and the MI6 got rid of him back in the 50s, put the Shah in. But the Shah only lasted 25 years.
Yeah.
The Ayatollahs have lasted over 45 years now.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a hard thing to crack, because what happens is they've got layers of society. If this regime falls, you got to think of all the different people who are going to lose their nice,
Yeah.
easy jobs. You got
Yeah.
the military.
Yeah.
The military has a lot of money, and they're being padded. Different. You have all kinds of different administrators that are tight with the imams, and there's, but I mean, some changes have come when they killed that young Kurdish girl for not having hijab on right.
Yeah.
What happens is they did make a law where you didn't have to wear the hijab anymore, but that took a while. They
Yeah.
didn't want to riot like that anymore.
Yeah.
But
Well,
this
the
go
other
ahead.
thing about you go to somewhere like you go to Tehran, and Tehran is actually a very modern city. By from the accounts of the people I know that have been there, very modern city, very clean. In normal times, of course, not when there's been a riot just occurred. Very clean, very generally a comfortable place to live. Very Western in style.
It's a little bit like LA. It's in a bowl, so a lot of the smog sits in there from the
Yeah.
cars. So that's a big problem with Tehran is the pollution. But aside from that, yeah, and remember that the Iranians are um, they're pretty well educated. They have all kinds of engineers, business people. Apparently, they're very good at business, very good at engineering.
Yeah.
Like there's a full society: engineers, doctors, accountants, you name it. They have a pretty good educated base.
The Iranians that I know are all IT people, data security people, data people.
Yes, some of the people that wanted to develop land around here. Remember that condominium right on River Road? Those guys were Iranian.
Yeah. Okay.
So they have a lot of my neighbor. My neighbor had a neighbor down on Ontario Avenue. He was Iranian, and he had fought in the war with the Iraqis.
Yeah.
He had been a soldier in the war against the Iraqis.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Gwen Dyer is basically saying this: if the U.S. Under Trump attempts to annex.
Wait a minute, we didn't speculate on what kind of what kind of action Trump's going to do
for Tehran.
He says that the Iranians have approached him to negotiate. What do you think that's all about?
Yeah. Well, negotiation, I think that they just want to be able to continue on. They want to get their they want to get their nuclear power back in part.
Well,
I think that's what they're primarily looking at.
I think they're kind of looking at what's happened in Venezuela now, and they see that Trump left the government in place. So are they going to negotiate and say, look, we'll let you run our oil, or we'll connect with you with oil? Will you just kind of leave us in place to do our thing like you did in Venezuela?
Okay, possibly, but I think
because Iran's in a pretty tough spot right now.
Yeah,
all the proxies are cut off. Like they lost their main ally, Assad. He's gone. So Syria is no longer a buffer zone for Iran. Iraq is sort of half and half, and they can't count on that. The Houthis are under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
They're pretty much isolated. They've got about one big customer, that's China, and even China's reduced the amount of oil it's buying, and they're under heavy sanctions. So they are a very vulnerable position right now, and I think they see what everybody else sees. If you stroke Trump just a certain way, you give him a few gifts, you tell him how wonderful he is, and maybe he'll go easy on you.
But I also think that one of the things that they actually desperately want is their nuclear program back, because they must be bereft of of power by now.
I don't know how many nuclear stations they have going. I don't know how many nuclear power generation stations they have going. And anyway, they could buy nuclear, less than nuclear grade uranium or plutonium for those reactors anyway. Absolutely. They can buy that on the open market. They don't have to refine it themselves.
Yeah, but they've still got to get the power stations back and working again.
Well, aren't they working?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just. You take a hit of bombing. They take a while to get them restarted.
But they haven't been bombed. The power stations haven't been bombed. It was the enrichment facilities that were being bombed.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
All right. We can find out pretty quick how many. I'll just ask my buddy.
Okay. Okay. I take that. I take it back then. All right.
How many nuclear power stations does Iran have? One operating commercial nuclear power station.
Yeah. I thought they had 4. I thought they had 5 or 6.
Well, their whole idea in the very beginning was to enrich uranium so that they could start a nuclear program and make nuclear power stations. But it's always been a very difficult thing because their enrichment has been so overlooked. They might have been selling a lot of the uranium too. That's another thing you can do. If you have a uranium and you can enrich it to a certain point, then you can sell it to other places that have a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
But in any case, whatever the case is, why would Iran reach out to the United States and negotiate at a particular time when it really looks good for particularly Israel, but also the United States to see the Ayatollahs fall in Iran?
Yeah. Well, again, will the Ayatollahs fall?
Well, they can push it along a little bit. But like we've said before, like in Venezuela, they have a locked-in corrupt government, and they got a pretty well locked-in corrupt government in Iran too.
Yeah.
And the people who are running things, they see if anything changes, they're out of a job.
But again, in Venezuela, there are current, there are current protests on the streets as well this weekend.
Yeah, but they're not like violent ones. What happened in Venezuela right after Maduro was pulled out? They had a bunch of goons go down the street looking for U.S. collaborators, but I don't think they found too many.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, you can go move on to the next one now, but I just had to finish off that story.
Okay. All right. Basically, Gwen Dyer is saying that if Donald Trump attempts to annex Greenland, NATO is effectively going to collapse. And he's saying various things about Canada and European NATO partners being core in the next period with the way that Donald Trump is working right now.
Donald Trump very well knows that he does not have to own Greenland. He does not. The United States does not have, nowadays, the United States does not have to own Greenland. If it felt it had to own Greenland bad enough, it would have just invaded many, many years ago. Right now, it has treaties with NATO and it has treaties with Denmark for mutual protection. He is lying so much. He says the whole place is full of Russian and Chinese ships. Now, nobody in the world believes that except the people in Fox and the average dumbass who will believe that. There are no such things as massive amounts of Russian and Chinese shipping.
Gwen Dyer makes it points out the fact that Greenland is no longer strategically important. The Cold War, during the Cold War, the intercepting of Soviet bombers, was a necessity. But that kind of the modern missile and satellite systems make the geography of Greenland almost irrelevant. So the demand for Greenland over security measures is really rubbish. And what Dyer is saying is the moves are political, not strategic. And he frames Greenland fixation as part of a pattern of impulsive, theoretical foreign policy moves. And, and I tend to agree with him.
Yeah, it's a big fat lie that they need him. Like it's been pointed out over and over on this show and anywhere else on any news station that has half a character that will tell the truth, that the Greenland had U.S. armed forces all over it.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that pulled them out.
Yeah.
And now they're saying there's a security threat. Well, if the U.S. thought that it was such a big security threat, they would never have left in the first place.
Yeah,
they do have one or two stations left, and those are mostly science stations. They do have a military core to them, but they're mostly a science station. So the whole thing is a big fat lie. So the United States does not need to own it. And Trump's thing is, I won't protect it unless I own it. Why shouldn't I? You know what I mean? They did it for, half a cent for up 70 years now. Why wouldn't they keep doing it?
Yeah.
And the whole idea is bad. But what Gwyn Dyer is saying is if NATO starts putting troops on Greenland themselves, if they start taking troops and putting on Greenland bases, that would be good. The Greenland prime minister, basically the autonomous leader of Greenland, which is trying to gradually become completely independent from Denmark, says we still choose Denmark over the USA.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a strong point.
Yeah,
and Greenland, Denmark, and Greenland are going to Washington. I don't know if it was today or sometime this week. And they're going for a meeting with Rubio and Vance, I think, or at least with Rubio, and they're going to get a quick tongue lashing. Do what you're supposed to do. We're going to kill you.
Yeah, the Danish and Greenlanders have had a love-hate relationship for a long time, but there's a level of trust between Greenland and Denmark that Denmark is providing a lot of services to Greenland, a lot of defense, etc. And Greenland's a long way away, considering it's part of Denmark. And the Greenlanders, whilst they want autonomy because of their historical background, also appreciate what Greenland does for them.
Yes, and they of course, nowadays they want the best interests of Greenland, of course, because they've been a colony of theirs for 300 years now. But I would remind everybody that the first settlement there was around 1,000, around the year 1000.
Yeah,
and it was the Vikings, and they, of course, it came from Iceland over there, and Denmark has had 3 overseas territories at the beginning of the last century. It was, of course, the U.S. Virgin Islands, which they sold to the U.S. in 1916. And during that deal, they made sure that the U.S. said they would be not interested in buying Greenland. Greenland was off the table. Don't bug us, and we're fine. So that's the first agreement the U.S. made with them. Then in the 40s, they made another agreement. In the 50s, they came up with an agreement between the U.S. and Denmark that was exclusive outside of NATO, which said, yeah, you can put as many bases here as you want. You can develop as much as you want here. That's what Denmark said to the U.S. So the whole idea that the U.S. has to own Greenland is a lie. This is more about Trump's ego. This is more about Trump's ego. He wants a win. He wants to show his people that he's a grand conqueror. And this all started when he changed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Yeah, it looked like a victory to the ignorant among his following, and now he's going after Venezuela.
Well, there's only one country in the world that calls it Gulf of America.
I know, it's the only one.
Yeah,
it's the only one.
And it's still joked about on Facebook today. But okay, so what Canada and Europe should do, according to Dyer, is Canada needs to deploy forces to Greenland, as does Europe, and not to fight the US, but to signal that Greenland is protected by NATO members.
Yes, I think that's a very good idea, but we know that Trump doesn't care about that one bit. But he would have a harder argument to say, "Give me Greenland."
Well,
now he can. They can do that because, rightly so, Trump went to NATO in his first term, and he's gone back to them, and he said, "Look, you guys don't pay for nothing. You got like we're paying for everything. We're shouldering the cost of all of NATO. Get your ass together and get some money into these situations." So the good thing about Trump is he got people to do that, right? Everybody, including Canada, was looking the other way. They weren't even coming up to the 2% rule, right? Trump says now he wants 5% out of NATO and all that, but they weren't even living up to the 2% rule. Yeah. And they were letting the U.S. shoulder all the responsibility, or 9/10 of it. So that's a good thing. That was one good thing he did. He got everybody woke up, and he says, "Look, we can't protect you anymore. You got to do something yourself," and including Canada. And that's good.
Pizzacala is saying that that Germany is going to exit NATO. I've not heard anything about that. I'd love if you got a link, send it to me, Rick. Put it on the page. I would love to know more about that. But what I've seen with since the Venezuela incident is been that essentially all of the Nordic nations, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, have declared their support for Greenland. Iceland have all declared their support for Greenland. In essentially the wholly of the EU and UK have all independently given their support to Greenland.
Yeah, so they can. So now, to get back to the other point, what Gwen Dyer says, they can prove to the world that they can protect Greenland, even though it doesn't need as much protection as Trump says. The place is not swimming with. The place is not crawling with Chinese and Russian ships. Is not. So they can put out NATO troops there to prove that NATO is doing their job and protecting a NATO nation, which Greenland is. Greenland is part of NATO. So the Germany thing, no, I think maybe one of the political parties may have suggested removing itself from NATO.
Yeah.
It would be a very bad thing for Germany to remove itself from NATO. Very, very bad.
Well, actually,
I think almost every NATO nations are on their own. And the United States has made it very clear that they're not interested in protecting Europe.
Yeah. Well,
Trump has failed so miserably in Ukraine.
One of the key factors about Germany being in NATO is the Germans were accused of so many things during the two world wars, and rightly in many instances. But Germany, post-war Germany, and the reason for having Germany within NATO is actually about security for Europe, making sure that they're all on the same, all reading from the same hymn book.
Well, NATO was first created to protect Germany.
Yeah, exactly. And it was there to protect West Germany rather than anything else. But and that's why I say Germany is central to NATO. It was initially West Germany, but now Germany is still that buffer zone to, was considered for such a long time as the buffer zone of the Cold War, wasn't it?
Yes, Germany, East Germany, the Czechs, the Russians did that. So you wonder why the Russians held on to the Czechoslovakia in those days, Poland, East Germany, and all the way down to Bulgaria, and they were reasonably happy with Yugoslavia, although they didn't control Yugoslavia. And so they had all these Soviet socialist type of allies, basically Romania and Hungary and all them. And the reason why they did is because it's very easy to invade Russia through those areas. They wanted a big, big buffer zone because they had been attacked twice now. And particularly the Second World War was so extraordinarily devastating. There was no way they were going to let that happen again. And so they were going to make sure there was a lot of buffer zone states between them and Moscow, or them and the motherland, basically. Yeah. So that's why they took Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. They took them really quick. They tried to take Finland. They were only able to get a piece or two of Finland, and early on. And they took Poland. They took half of Poland, famously when they were allied with Germany. So they want this big buffer zone because from anywhere in Europe, it's easy to invade Russia because it's nice flat land. You can just go like crazy, and especially through Ukraine.
Yeah.
So they had all these buffer zones, and when NATO started eating them up after the fall of the Soviet Union, now they're stronger again, and they think, whoa, ho, ho, wait a minute, our enemies are really, really on our doorstep. And that, of course, is what's motivated a lot of what's happened in Ukraine.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on, is there anything else from Gwen Dyer's thoughts that you need to bring up?
No, but I think it's a pretty good idea that NATO show the world that they can do what they're supposed to do. And I think Trump had made the case earlier that NATO never put any money in or didn't take.
This is the point.
Yeah. So you can reverse that on them by just sending troops to Greenland and showing that NATO is feeling responsible about Greenland, even though all evidence up to now said there's no real issue with China or Russia. China's come snooping around and asked to see if they can get into some of the mining there. I don't know how that ever turned out.
I get it. There's money to be made, right?
Yeah. So, but of course, there's money to be made on the Panama Canal too, when they had ports on the other side. I suppose you could say that'd be a launch off point for Chinese to be able to close off the Panama Canal. I don't know why they ever would, but of course, Trump put very close attention to that. First of all, the Chinese are still there. It's just that I don't know
the other thing about this, of course, is that with the Northwest Passage being more open today because of the alleged global warming that we've been going through, and the Northwest Passage actually is open for longer periods of time than it has ever been.
Yeah, that's going to be a difficult thing too, because the Northwest Passage is completely within Canadian territorial waters and territory.
Yeah.
But what they're claiming now is the Northwest Passage is an open passage that that's been a navigable place for years and then should be an international waterway. The U.S. pulled that on us back in the 80s. They started sending tankers through there saying it's a international passageway, like the Gulf of Suez.
But again, who opens that passageway up who opens that passageway up with icebreakers? It's Canada.
Anybody could. And if once the ice starts leaving for longer periods of time, they're going to get more and more traffic through there.
Yeah.
Which means, like, if it is recognized as an international travel zone, travel area, then Canada would not have exclusive rights to the part that runs through Canada, which is the majority part.
Yeah.
And the other part, of course, being Alaska, So there are questions to be asked there too. That might be the next thing that Trump, if anyone allows him to be successful. The thing we know about Trump is the more you give into him, the more you try to appease him, the more he asks for, the more he pushes, he gets more and more.
Yeah. But again,
So
the
the idea is you got
entranceway,
to come up against him strong in the first place. You got to put a
yeah,
lot of resistance out there,
yeah,
and then maybe give him a piece of gold or something and say how wonderful he is. But you
yeah,
got to be very resistant, because it's the minute you give, he takes
yeah.
more.
But the entranceway to the Northwest Passage I was just talking about is shared between Canada and Greenland.
Yeah, you could come, but I think it's pretty much within Canadian territorial waters.
Oh,
You don't
yeah,
have to
it's
go into
large.
Greenland territorial
Yeah,
waters
but
to get to it.
it's along that edge where the Canadian Greenland water, the water between Canada and Greenland exists.
Yeah, and there's that totally totally disputed island, Hans Island, right between
Oh yeah,
Greenland and Canadian islands there. It's split down the middle now. We shared it, Hans
yeah.
Island. I have a feeling that might come into very important one day.
Oh,
Maybe 100 years from
that
now.
could be a NATO base.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's big enough for that, but
Probably not. Probably not. But you know what I'm saying.
yeah. But
They can
the Northwest Passage is anyway. You would go across the top of Alaska anyway, so the United States would control the westernmost part of it, and
Yeah.
Canada would
Oh, yeah.
control the easternmost part of it. So
Yeah, basically Canada, Greenland control the Atlantic entrances, and Canada controls the central portion of it before it's wholly in U.S. territory.
yeah, so this shortens transportation, and as global warming makes, as we know, the ice sheets last longer and longer up there, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that's going to be a bone of contention. But for right now, like Greenland is not threatened by Russia or China.
No.
Canada is already in there mining and has been mining.
Yeah.
So the U.S. can go in at any time to mine. It's got an open invitation from Greenland. Of course, they would like the investment. And they already have a treaty where they can put as much military as they want anywhere on the island, and military bases. That's already been well established. So Trump is a big fat liar. And the story he's spinning is for his own ignorant people. And the politicians that aren't so ignorant are going along with that. And what is it with that Lindsey Graham guy? He's kind of like Trump mini-me, isn't he? Going around, oh, Donald Trump's going to kill you. Donald Trump's going to kill you. And he's like, if you don't get out of Iran, the Ayatollah, Trump's going to kill you. And then what the heck is he? He's like a little mini-me, Trump's mini-me. What's?
Yeah, okay. I don't know.
God, he looks weird.
Yeah, I've heard the guy. I'm not, I haven't yet formed an opinion upon him except as a nutcase.
Oh, he just goes with the flow. Basically, he hated Trump, but now that Trump's in, he loves him now. Oh, he's my pal.
Yeah.
Because he's getting a lot of.
That's why the nutcase label, right?
Oh, he's the weirdest guy. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anytime the guy opens his mouth, I think, where did that weirdo come from?
All right. Okay. Okay. So moving on. Ontario wants to bring is bringing more attractions to Niagara with a multi-billion-dollar plan, and the idea is that Doug Ford was here Monday announcing a new strategy aiming to add new attractions, new service expansions, particularly in the Marineland area, because basically they've understood that most locals want an amusement park to replace Marineland, but without the animals.
So they do mention the fact that they have 30 beluga whales they're still trying to get rid of. Oh, and they can't get rid of them.
That's a given, and that's not gonna happen tomorrow, right?
I don't even think it's gonna happen.
And in fact, if it's done properly, why can't we have a beluga whale reserve here?
Well, the problem is we don't want to hold animals that shouldn't be in captivity. Now these beluga whales are probably all born in captivity and don't know
Don't know anything better.
nothing
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
But the problem is with the beluga whales, when they do find someplace where they might send them, then there's a whole lot of hoopla about, oh, it's not good to send them there. They don't treat them that well, or the travel will be it'll be too intense on them. It'll cause them stress and they'll die, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's almost like it's impossible to get rid of the belugas. Now, what you could do, I suppose, what you're going to be stuck with belugas until they die off one by one, as long as you can stop them from mating and getting pregnant and all that. So you just have to wait until they start dying off. The hideous one would be somebody may suggest that they be euthanized. No, that's not a good idea either. Nobody is going to go along with that. So you're stuck with 30 beluga whales. Let's put it that way, unless the government steps in and puts them in a different place.
But again,
that idea of putting them in off the coast of Nova Scotia, that would have been a good idea if they ever even had the place ready or whatever, but they don't. You know,
the government.
So that's the number one big issue there. So they can talk about Marineland and talk about developing the areas in and around Marineland, but they've got no idea what to do with those belugas, and they have not had an idea for the last 10 years. Yeah, what are they going to do with them?
Yeah, well,
so that kind of limits some of the things they can do with Marineland.
In some respects, though, it's incumbent upon the government to actually help move them. And as I say, it's not an issue that's going to happen tomorrow, but but maybe that place in in Nova Scotia might, with a little investment, may actually be worthwhile.
Yes, but as far as Niagara Falls is concerned, yes, we do want. Most people think it'd be a huge Canada Wonderland type of amusement park would be great there. Yeah, it'd be a great place for the family to go, because you can only look at the falls so often. When you got a bunch of kids, they look at it and they're pretty bored and they're running around. It may amaze adults, and adults can look at it for an hours at a time, like I can, but kids, no. So if you got a family,
the kids are bored in 15 minutes, aren't they? Well, as soon as grandma's told them, if you go over the edge there, you could die. That kind of makes it real. And okay, it's interesting to look at, but hey, I'm not going any closer. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And then, so to have a big amusement park up there where people could come and have a whole day or longer, where they can go and just have a wonderful time at an amusement park, like I did with my kids at Canada's Wonderland. But Canada's Wonderland was the last outfit that resisted that. They pointed out that might draw a lot of their own business away, and sometimes they have a tenuous type of business season. Sometimes they don't have the greatest of business seasons, depending on the economy and stuff. Yeah. Do they want that competition of a Marineland, Canada Wonderland type of amusement park, where the family could come down here for the day rather than go to crowded, smelly north of Toronto place? So.
Well, I think you need I think you need another one. There's enough population around that we can have one. There's no reason why Marineland can't be developed. Marineland was half that before anyway.
I would say so. I would say it would be a great idea to have an amusement park there, and maybe a water park or anything that Canada's Wonderland has. You could. I don't know if you can be quite as big as Canada's Wonderland there, but you could have a pretty good amusement park.
It's still got a lot of acreage there that you can build one from.
Yeah. So so that's the whole point. And can you have a wonderful amusement park there for kids? Yes, you can. But is it going to happen anytime soon? It doesn't seem to. That would be my priority if I was the Ontario government. They're trying to really bolster this area as a tourist and make it double the size it is tourist wise. As Jim Diodati said, I think he was quoted, when the tide comes in, all the boats float up, so he's saying, when this investment comes in, everybody's going to do much better. Another thing they talk about is the airfield, the Niagara on the Lake airport, expanding it to bigger jets and so on. Yeah, that's good. Expanding the QE. Yeah, that's good. But that all takes a lot of time, and they're pushing for more and more.
Actually, that was actually one of my questions. Garden City Skyway. There's posts on it. We talked about it on the early days of this show about how there was going to be a twinning of the bridge on the Garden City Skyway. And at the moment, other than preparing a little bit of land on either side of the bridge for excavators and things like that, there doesn't seem to be any work going ahead with the Skyway.
I don't know. I have nothing. I have nothing for that. Nothing.
Well, they've taken away that Ontario place that was, come visit Ontario places to go. They've taken that away in preparation for the new ramp to go up onto the bridge there. But in reality, they've done nothing. They've not actually put a spade in the ground on getting the Skyway done.
Well, you'll have to write Doug Ford and tell him, hey, buddy, you want all this investment to come into the Niagara region, but you're not building your road. That's your part. But so basically they want to throw a lot of money into Niagara, including better roads, the airport. My big thing would be, if you really want to attract a lot more families, get that Marineland thing going. Another thing you could do is find more, if you want people to stay overnight, find more sort of family-friendly accommodations that you don't have to sort of mortgage your house to get a room for the night. I get it. When the demand goes up, the price goes up. But what that also does is it stops people from coming in the first place.
Yeah.
If the demand goes up, the price goes up, but you need more facilities. You need more variety of facilities. You want, like, if I was a family, when I had my family, and even when I was working steady, going to a hotel was a lot of money. I mean, people go to the Great Wolf Lodge for a special treat. They take their family and everything to the Great Wolf Lodge, but they save, that's a special treat kind of thing. It's not something that you come down on a regular basis.
Actually, the funny thing is, I don't know. I remember from when I was a kid, we used to go stay in that. We went to a couple of places. We stayed in a hotel in one place, and it wasn't that expensive, because if it was expensive, my parents couldn't have afforded to have gone there. But with any hotels, there is always the high class hotels, and there's always the hotels for everybody else.
Well, what they don't understand is, like, when I went to Southeast Asia and that, I was very pleased that they had all kinds of accommodations. They hit every market. It was, I mean, if a place was particularly busy, your prices would go up. But if you're looking for like medium type of accommodations, like I was paying maybe about 10 to 12 US dollars maybe on average a night. So I could even sometimes cheaper than that, about that, maybe even less. And I remember I splurged one time and got a place for $18 US a night, because it had an elevator and it had a lovely view in the street. So I splurged, but I could have got a room for $10 a night. But there was accommodations for everybody there. There were accommodations for students, so you could get a room for, a few bucks, $5 or less, and you might have to share it. It was student type of housing. You might have to share the room with a couple other students. You go up a little bit from there, and you'd get a very super basic stuff and then up. But what was there was there was an accommodation for you no matter what kind of income level you were. So if you had a lot of money, you could go to the posh places. If you had medium kind of money, you could go to medium place. But they were there.
Yeah.
And what is not here in Niagara Falls is accommodations for families. They just make money as they are. If they had more accommodations that were cheaper, then more families would come and more money. And they seem to only want to attract people to come for one weekend of summer, when you could actually attract them to come several weekends during the season. But what you do is you get, we went down to Niagara Falls for the weekend, and that was nice. Maybe we'll go again next year. What you want to do is have them come down every couple weekends, and stay the night.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Right. Anything else on that?
Nope.
No, I don't think there is. Okay. There's a new Foodland opening in the heart of Niagara-on-the-Lake, and just really announcing that. I'm not sure where it is, but it looks like it's just a replacement for the existing store that was down there.
I don't know. It looks like Niagara-on-the-Lake has to fall into that zone where everybody goes to Niagara-on-the-Lake because it's nice and quaint, and they like it, and they don't, they're against the big stores and stuff like that. But it's just like Pelham and Grimsby. Sooner or later, the convenience of a big fat store coming in, a big box store coming in, and things like that is irresistible. So I don't know how much they're going to try to blend in with the community. But let's face it, this always happens. People go to these quaint towns to live, and they pay a lot of money. And sooner or later, the demand is there for the conveniences that they said they didn't like before,
Yeah. And it's like, well, I don't want to have to drive to St. Catharines or Niagara Falls for that. I want to have it in my own town.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to a couple of guys I knew lived in Grimsby, and that was their thing, right?
Yeah.
But one of them lived in Grimsby for a very long time, and of course they found the housing all around them went up, and this is long ago, right? The housing went way up because all these people were moving in and wanted these quaint houses, and then they started bumming out because they came in and wanted their houses, and then after that they wanted the things they were trying to get away from, which was big box stores and more roads and more traffic.
Well, the interesting thing,
that was the interesting thing is in Fawn Hill,
Yeah. So when I lived in Grimsby, or up the mountain in part of Grimsby, Grassy, we used to come down to Grimsby all the time, and they had all the big box stores. So that was 20 odd years ago when we went there.
Yeah. Well, the guys I'm talking to were talking about like when they
probably
living in the 80s and when all this started happening in the 80s, like
yeah, of course you're talking about much earlier than that, because for me, when I went to Grimsby, I was up the mountain in Grassy. I was actually in a situation where I had that quaint little village, because I could drive down to Grimsby to have all those box stores.
Well, in any case, this is a building that's required, and I don't know what else to say about it. I read the article, and it didn't. I don't know why they wrote an article about it. I don't really know why it was a special article. I guess it's a Niagara-on-the-Lake local thing to tell the locals that they've got now a grocery store they can go to, and so I thought, okay, good for people in Niagara-on-the-Lake. They got the grocery store. The first thing that came to mind was, when most people move to a place like that, they don't want the big grocery stores. They don't want the big box stores, but they end up getting them anyway.
Betty's saying our superstore, main store, everybody goes there, right? So, buy in bulk. Maybe that's why. Yeah, well, that's a possibility. We need to keep it within 15 minutes. Yeah, the 15-minute city concept. Hey, Rick, how far away is that? Yeah.
Well,
Because
one thing here is like they, which I liked about the article, they said they were going to stock it up with local stuff,
yeah,
local produce. Well, sure. I mean, they're right in the middle of farmland, and
yeah,
that would be really nice if they could get. But I mean, every store says that, and I'm not so sure if we're getting exactly local stuff, but we are getting stuff from Ontario, and I look for the stuff that's grown in Ontario, and then after that, grown in Canada, and then after that, anything but the United States for now, until that tariff thing starts, and then I will. So
yeah.
I don't buy the American oranges anymore. I buy the ones from Spain. I don't buy pears from I don't buy pears from the U.S. anymore. I buy the ones that come from Argentina. That kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think actually we got, when it comes to pears, we got some of the best here locally.
Yes.
And if you're buying Canadian pears, they likely come from Ontario.
Yeah, that's true, but they don't store as well. Like I don't think they store as well as
maybe not
as
maybe.
apples. Like
And you only get them.
Apples you can put in storage and keep them. I think it's at 39 degrees, and in coolers at 39 degrees, and they can pretty much stay that way. As a matter of fact, most of the apples you are eating are 1 year old. They just take out of storage, so they keep a bunch in storage in these special cooling
Depends
areas.
what apples you get, because one of the things, one of yours and my favorites, the russets, which have gone off the shelves, they don't store very well at all.
No, they don't. You got to eat them, but that's part of the thing is. But you can keep them in a fridge, and they'll kind of get wrinkly, but then they'll be a kind of a different taste after that too. It's kind of neat. They never really. They always taste good. Whether if you pull them off the tree too early, they taste more like other apples. So if you harvest them at the right time, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
I've got a russet tree, which I'm developing and hoping the russet get some russet apples in a couple of years' time.
Well, I did have one myself when I lived on Ontario Avenue, and I found the biggest problem was squirrels when I started getting apples. And one of the things I found for bugs anyway is I just took old coffee grounds, an old coffee that I didn't drink, and I just kind of boiled up the coffee grounds and kind of rendered it down a bit, and then I'd fill up a spray bottle with that stuff because it's got. I read that caffeine is a natural insecticide, and I used that on my apples, and it worked. And it worked. So the bugs didn't come, but the squirrels still knocked them down and ate them all.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna remember that, because ours isn't. Ours is going to be a couple of years before we've got any apples to speak of. But I'll try and remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's you use all your old coffee grounds, maybe even tea. And start boiling it down so you get more of a thicker mixture. Not that thick, but I mean, more water out of it and more concentrated. Yeah. It's still easy to spray. And it worked. Like I sprayed the apples. I just have to make sure I sprayed them after the rainstorms and stuff like that, you know. And, it worked. Yeah, the ones I sprayed, no bugs got in them.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think we're kind of time enough to just basically say goodbye to everybody. I was thinking we could start a new article, but then I looked at the clock and went, oh, no, we don't.
Okay, without further ado, I'm going to bring everybody up to snuff on Gaza, too. I saw a short little article that they're trying to jam everybody. They got what they call the yellow line, and it divides Gaza north to south. They're trying to jam all the Palestinians in over that yellow line. 2 million people in a place that's half the size that was too small for it in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're getting away with this business, and believe me, the Palestinians will never give up. They will never give up. You're going to have to kill them all. They will not give up, and everybody seems to think sooner or later, the Palestinians will give up, and then we won't have this problem anymore. But they'll never give up. You got to remember that. And so they should have to accommodate them. Everything's being unfair to them. It's very much like the Native Americans here, the Indians, when they got forced to push on to Indian reservations. But their numbers were so small and all that. The Palestinians did not die of diseases that killed off the natives here. They don't want to go. They want their land. And as much as Israel wants to push them off and ethnically cleanse the place, it's not going to happen. Not anytime soon. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.